Good morning, everyone, and thanks organizers for the invite. Uh, okay, okay. So in the next 10 odd minutes, I'll be speaking on maybe taking a take-home conclusion. Some trials I'll be alluding, which has not been spoken in the morning, and for the some of it, I'll go faster, but put up some points which has not been spoken by the previous speakers. So my point was to look at the locally advanced. What I feel is when stage 2 and 3 is something which I feel should be in that group of patients. Operable, inoperable is something that should be taken up in a tumor board. If it is inoperable, the take home should be that it these are the patients who should go for a concurrent chemoradiotherapy. It's operable. That how I do it is if the patient you feel it fit to go for a neoadjuvant treatment and chemotherapy, then the immunotherapy comes in. That is how it should be. If I feel the patient deemed eligible for a neoadjuvant chemo, then the immunotherapy does add, and that component should be added. Not everyone is eligible for neoadjuvant chemo, someone, so don't push it. So 1B is something I'm not pretty happy to push 1Bs into a neoadjuvant chemoradiotherapy. 2A also could be the other way. 2B, 3A is something which I think is the way to go ahead. And can we add something beyond that is the topic, and especially for the targetable mutations. So my day today will be on the adjuvant TKIs. That's a major robust data which I'll be speaking on. I'll have 2 or 3 slides on the neoadjuvant target therapy. What is the evidence today? Should we practice or should we wait for further evidence to evolve? So we start with Alina. I'll be specifically alluding to 3 trials. And this is a trial which has been published in New England Journal of Medicine in April, if I'm not wrong, a recent publication. This trial had something very different, a little bit different from ADAURA. So mark these things. It was again 1B and 3A. So anything 2, 3A and 1B were eligible. Basically, patients who were eligible for adjuvant chemo more than 4 centimeters. That's what it was, very straightforward. They had to be ALK positive. Remember, 5% of your patients in this subgroup of patients who are operable would be ALK positive. Not everyone is eligible for this trial. The next point what you should be remembering is adjuvant immune checkpoint inhibitors do not benefit. The IMpower 010 told us 2 things, that more than 50% is the persons who are driving the benefit of PD-L1, and EGFR ALK positive do not benefit. The forest plots, the confidence interval look much not so good. So this is 2 take home. So we needed something more. The point that is different from ADAURA is the patients who were otherwise eligible for adjuvant chemotherapy here were randomized to chemo versus alectinib. So it was not like ADAURA where you could complete your chemotherapy and then were randomized to in a double-blinded way to osimertinib versus placebo. It was a randomization between chemo versus the alectinib. And here the alectinib was for 2 years. So there are some salient differences we should remember. So this is also criticism which we'll come to in a minute. That was chemotherapy and would chemotherapy have benefited or added more, at least in the 2B and 3A, where we expect. In today's practice, how many of would be comfortable taking away chemotherapy, establish 5% benefit in OS. And OS is the standard, gold standard for early treatment. So with that background, these patients were randomized into 1:1. It's a relatively okay, because you have only 5% patients who are ALK positive. So you don't expect huge numbers here. Like EGFR, ADAURA had a much larger number. So it was a primary endpoint was DFS, and there was a hierarchical way of doing it for youngsters. Hierarchical means when you go for the first step, if that is insignificant, technically and statistically you do not assess the second step, because the second step is statistically insignificant. Even though you're in a post hoc, it may be significant. And that is something people have to remember, and this is very important. If you're doing a statistics, follow the statistics rules. Number 2, the second endpoint was CNS DFS, which included any CNS progression or death due to any cause. That's the definition of CNS DFS and the safety. So this is how it was, and mark, the hazards were set at 0.55 to achieve a statistical significance. It is not anything as you normally see. So also when you read a trial today, you would find many of these OS and DFS having a otherwise p-value less than 0.05, but still you would find it to be statistically insignificant. because they're predefined, and you have to read the statistics part of a trial, because lot of the p-values and the alpha values goes away when they do interim analysis. So that is how this is something they've told, that anything 0.55 hazards or below would be significant for Alina. So baseline characteristic, just to quickly tell you, that if you look at it, the stage 1B were only 11%, very minor subset of patients. 3A were 50% or more of the patients, N2 were 50%, N1 was 35%. Most of them were adeno or non-squamous, and lobectomy was the most important surgical procedure done. And if you look at the never smokers, as usual, former and never smokers constituted 95% of the population. This is the thing which was published. If you look at the 2 years and 3 years DFS, it was statistically significant in favor of alectinib adjuvant, and the hazards was 0.24. You had a 75% advantage. And look at the DFS, it was 93.8% 2 years versus 63 for chemo, for the chemotherapy arm. And mind you, these were the patients who just received adjuvant alectinib and did not receive chemotherapy. It was only a randomization directly between them. For the stage 1B and 2A, again, because it was statistically significant for this, as per hierarchical analysis, this was also analyzed and this was also significant. And if you look at stage wise, look at the hazards, it is beneficial across all stages, although stage 1B, remember, only 10% was stage 1B. So it did not have that value to do that, and the confidence interval was wide expectedly, but the hazards were as good as the higher stages. And this is what the forest plot looks like, the stage and the nodes. And if you look at it, it is looking really like a ADAURA trial. If you look at the ADAURA forest plot and someone has looked at the DFS ADAURA, it's similar to ADAURA point, except for the hazards in ADAURA looked little more better. Otherwise, it's nearly the 0.18 to 0.45423 is where the hazards look like here also. The CNS disease, what I want to look at is the brain recurrence. If you look at it, it was 14 for the chemotherapy versus much lesser for the alectinib group, and the OS data is immature. And the CNS DFS, which I told, was any recurrence that could be in the CNS or death. Both were counted as CNS DFS, and that was also statistically significant, 0.22. For subsequent therapies, the patient who progressed, although at this time point was lesser, most of them received a TKI on progression. So that also will affect the OS at some point, and that we have always seen in ADAURA also. The safety is nothing I would like to speak about. Just to tell you, the dose discontinuation was around 5% compared to 13% in chemotherapy. And when I come to ADAURA, you have a look, it is much higher than what you have in alectinib. Could prior chemotherapy played a role in that? We don't know. But all said and done, here the discontinuation was 5% versus 13%. So they concluded that it was good, it was advantageous, and the criticism what I have is, this is the immature OS data. The omission of adjuvant chemotherapy in stage 2, 3A is something will I practice? Yes, with the data set, I will offer it to my patients, but it's still the question unanswered, and there are trials going on by these groups which are looking at chemotherapy followed by alectinib. Also, there are trials going on in the future, which we will be getting recent publications for the duration of alectinib. Are we looking at a longer duration of alectinib versus 2 years? So there are two more questions that are open that needs to be answered. The role of chemo in this subset of groups. ADAURA told chemo, no chemo doesn't matter, but here we don't know. And the second question that's unanswered is the duration. So these two questions will be answered in the future trials. And now coming swiftly, I go off to the EGFR, and if you look at it, the evidence is not, I'll just skip this, sorry. The ADAURA, if you look at it, this is the ADAURA trial, osimertinib versus placebo, and all of us know this, have been spoken quite a bit. I'll just go to the salient features. The updated OS has been recently published. All of us know the data sets, that it was significant. If you club together, stage 2 to 3A, that was the primary endpoint. It was statistically significant with a p-value of 0.4, hazards of 0.49. So it was a very beneficial protocol treatment of 3 years of osimertinib in the right patient group. For the 1B to 3A, when you club the 1Bs, and it just also the hazard sat same at the 0.49. It was no different actually. But when you go stage wise and look at it and look at the curves how they separate, and at these 5 years time you had a hazards which was 0.44, but the p-value, the confidence interval was wide, and the curves do not look as impressive as they look in stage 3A. So you with the patient have to take a combined decision of giving osimertinib adjuvant to all versus waiting for a progression to happen. But at this point, all of us as med-oncs should at least be discussing this point with the patient, because there is a benefit of DFS, that's all of us know. Even the OS hazards is pretty impressive at 0.44 and just missing the confidence interval. The subsequent treatment again was as usual. 88% of these patients who relapsed on the placebo arm received some form of TKI. We can argue upon that only 43 received osimertinib, the standard of care. Should all have received osimertinib, and could the survival would have been different? It may have been, but the reality is not everyone in the real world can afford osimertinib. So all said and done, 90% did receive a TKI of any form. Safety, I'm not going to do, just to tell you that discontinuation were 10%. Remember 5% what I spoke with the alectinib. So this is something which I want to halt for a minute and then go to the last trial. Look at these curves. All of us and sir told us, why did in LAURA we think of continuing osimertinib for so long? How did it come into? And the investigators brought this point. If you look at it, we stopped osimertinib at 36 months. This is the hazards for stage 2 to 3A. This is the hazards for CNS relapse for ADAURA. And look at it, when they stopped at 36 months, the events happened much faster. Within a month or so, the events started happening. And this was the point that went into the LAURA trial investigators, that the patients are relapsing as soon as we stop. The rate of events during the treatment and post discontinuation was starkly different, which is very much visible on these curves. And that is the one reason why they have told for a continuous till progression in the adjuvant osimertinib post CTRT. So this is something all of us has to remember. There was science behind it. We can argue against it, but this is the science. So issues with LAURA, 1B, would I do it? I will be okay. I'll discuss it for legal purpose. I won't push it much. I won't let the patient, because 3 years of osimertinib is too costly at this point for average Indian patients. Could longer duration osimertinib be a better option? I told you the DFS curves. I think this data is still will be looked into 5 years versus 3 years. This is something which I would be also looking at. Practical use, I think we should be using it. Earlier stage, I will just rethink. LAURA, very quickly, all of the speakers spoke about the EGFR do not benefit much. This is what Vishwas showed us. And if you look at the LAURA, the design is 2:1. I'm not going to go into that part of it, just to tell you the salient features. If you look at the concurrent versus sequential, in the placebo, you had double the number of patients who had received sequential versus the concurrent. We all have shown that the concurrent is superior to sequential by 5%. But did it matter for this trial? I'll come to you in a minute. And look at the other point that is very, very important is the 3A, 3B, 3C. The percentages are nearly similar. The L858R is around 48% in osimertinib arm, which is considered a little more bad, versus the placebo, which are lesser of exon 21. The PFS is very, very significant at the hazards, which is looking at 0.16, which you'll never probably see. And if you look at this, it is 39.1 months, nearly 4.5 years versus 5.6 months for placebo. So this does give a compelling point for us to offer for EGFR positive patients post concurrent chemoradiotherapy, osimertinib, and the indefinite is a thing which you have to disclose patient. Because many times most of our younger colleagues and even senior colleagues tell about shuru karo fir dekhenge. And the trial tells you, I would not start if a patient does not have a really deep pockets. If I stop, the relapses would happen. And then you would not get this LAURA curves happening. The same thing, just look at the forest plot. Everyone actually benefits. Just to tell you one thing, look at the response to prior chemotherapy. Irrespective of what the response was, the benefit was there. The concurrent with sequential story, the benefit was both for concurrent and sequential. So osimertinib adjuvant took away that sequential versus concurrent debate which happened if you do not give adjuvant osimertinib. That's my take on it. The last point, there were lesser brain mets on the osimertinib arm than what we did. And just to point here, gefitinib, when they tried in adjuvant, and even the other first generation TKIs, the brain mets was the most important significant factor which happened much more than chemotherapy arm also. So here you have a trial which is showing that adjuvant osimertinib, the CNS events are lesser. The OS data is immature, but one thing this graph tells me, last point, that if you miss out somehow, you still can catch up on OS. But the DFS, you are definitely going to have longer relapses. But once the metastasis happen, probably you still can catch up. Not like the ALK story, but some catching up is done on the survival curves. 36 months shows you they're just overlapping on each other, still very immature. So, indefinite use and OS data I've already spoken about. 2 slides on new adjuvant TKI. Number of trials are less, no conclusive results. Even reports of progression is there. Usually the pre-op TKIs for those interested in trials is 42 to 56 days. The largest trial data is for CTONG 1103, and it showed you that out of 386 patients, they enrolled 72, 37 to erlotinib, 37 to gem cisplatin chemotherapy. And if you look at it, quite a big bulkier disease, but to cut the long story short, the response rate was superior to the erlotinib, but it was not significant for other oncology outcomes. So this is where the neoadjuvant stands today. It should not be done outside a trial setting, and the PathCR for neoadjuvant TKI is around 9%. So with that, I conclude. PD-L1 EGFR ALK testing, at least in the early lung cancer, is the standard of care. We should do it. Adjuvant alectinib, osimertinib in operable 1B to 3A. Do all deserve this approach? You have to discuss one-to-one with the patient. I've told you all the points. Post-RTCT, adjuvant osimertinib data has emerged. Strong data should be discussed with all, and Durva should not be given for this subgroup of patients. We have a Libretto 432. This trial is recruiting, and I think we're also in the near future will have the adjuvant RET inhibitors, and this will also going the Adura way. They are planned for chemotherapy and then randomized into placebo versus the drug. So only the Alina is one which has randomized versus, rather than others have done chemo and then they have gone for this approach. So with that, thank you, and thank you, sir, for allowing 1 more minute. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rao sir, and it was a wonderful talk.
Thank you, sir.
Always we enjoy your talk. And any questions, 1 or 2 questions for the lack of time?
Regarding chemotherapy, you mentioned the Lina trial, chemotherapy.
Yeah, it was.
For a stage 3 lung which has been resected, has shown ALK positive mutation. So would it be acceptable to give only TKI?
As per the data set, yes, and that is, yeah, what they have told that the standard arm has been always chemotherapy till now, and the relapses in stage 3 is 70% or 70% at this point, and the toxicity was a preluding factor. So this trial, with the criticism, randomized them. So as per this data set, we should be offering these patients, but there are future trials which, as I told, are looking into the role of additional chemotherapy in this subgroup of patient. So I don't know the answer, but at this point, you are legally correct, and patient has the evidence to start alectinib alone rather than going for chemo.
Similarly, I know your answer, but can we extrapolate this to EGFR?
Yeah, EGFR story. Yeah, the EGFR, if you give 40% did not receive chemotherapy in Adura, and the trial showed there was no extra benefit. It did not matter. 60 received chemo, 40 did not, and the hazards are similar. So this trial did show that there was no much difference. So you can extrapolate that way. That is in metastatic setting, madam. Yeah. I think adjuvant is a different ball game altogether. One of the authors is shaking her head very violently over there, Nandini. So I think we should not extrapolate the adjuvant into the metastatic, and these are two different ball games altogether. Toxicity does play a role. The duration plays a role here. You have a finite, here is infinite. So a lot of differences are there, man. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.